Hello, everybody, and welcome to Off the Cuff. I'm Alex Dodd, and this is Will Vandervort. Due to our 18-second countdown, you couldn't see what I was doing before we went live, but I was primping the beer, getting ready to go.
They saw it at the end.
No, they didn't.
Alex hasn't learned how to use the time exactly. When you get to 2 seconds, you stop doing anything, and you just wait for it. The key is 2 seconds. That's why on TV you see him say 3. Oops. You see him say 3.
Will's flicking off the viewers, and we're just getting started. It was an accident, so we don't have to say that this isn't safe for kids or anything.
This is live podcast, so it happens from time to time. Mistakes are going to happen, and that was definitely one of them.
Well, it's good to be back with you guys. We're starting to get some consistency here, which is good. It's probably going to help you guys out with actually knowing when we go live instead of us, recording at midnight or something. Unfortunately, because we're not recording at midnight, we can't have Alex Turry give us his mortal locks because he's, going to school or whatever, trying to better himself, learning.
Well, who wants to
whatever
do
that's
that?
about. Yeah, I don't know, not me. But we had a great weekend of college football last weekend, kind of surprisingly. Because when you looked at the slate, it didn't look like it was going to be good, but we actually ended up having some really good games.
Mm-hmm.
But this weekend, man, the slate is loaded.
It is.
And I've been waiting for this one since the summer when I was looking at what we've got coming up on the college football schedule. And, 6 ranked matchups this weekend.
Would have been 7.
Clemson. Well, yeah,
seven.
should be 7. But
should be. The coaches poll at 7. So if you go by the coaches poll, it's 7.
So 7 in the coaches poll, and the coaches generally know more about football than goobers like us. So
there's truth to that, because I could tell you the goobers who still have Clemson ranked is ridiculous. I don't know how you don't have Clemson ranked right now. And it's more, like I said on the show yesterday, it's more of a slap at Duke than Clemson. Because Duke they're still like, even though Duke's ranked 18th, they're still saying, well, Duke's win against Clemson really isn't that good because they don't rank Clemson. And I'm like, how can you not rank Clemson? By the way, Alabama, who's playing like dog doo-doo, is number 13. I mean,
yeah.
So like, let's rank Alabama, who almost lost to South Florida, 3-3 going into the fourth quarter to South Florida, and Clemson's not ranked. If you're going to rank Alabama, you got to rank Clemson. That's all I got to say. Brett McMurphy, Alabama graduate. I'm calling him out.
Which I think he had Clemson ranked like 23rd or something before the season started, right?
yeah, he had him ranked low, and he hadn't ranked him. And there's more than just him, but I'm calling him out because I know he's an Alabama grad, and I think he's got something against Clemson. I don't know what it is, but it's obvious he always ranked Clemson way lower than most people.
One thing that I'll give Brett McMurphy credit for is at least he posts his ballot.
He does.
A lot of people don't. At least he is okay with being accountable to the people.
He's okay being a homer for Alabama.
He's transparent with his homerism. So we appreciate that about him.
I mean, not that I'm not, considering what's behind me, but but I mean, look, I got nothing against Brett Murphy's a good reporter. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just like, sometimes I wonder with his rankings, like, dude, you got something against Clemson? I just don't understand it. I just don't understand it. Is it because Clemson beat his beloved Alabama twice in the national championship game? Is that where it comes from? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe. Conspiracy theory.
And listen, as bad as I said Alabama is, I don't hold Alabama a grudge for beating Clemson because in my rankings, Alabama's ranked in the top 15. So they're ranked in my poll. So even though I do think they've played like doo-doo sandwiches the last couple of weeks.
Even if Alabama does wish that they had Jimmy Greenbeans playing quarterback instead of the combination of inept players that they keep running out there at that position. Will, let's talk about the guard for a second. You all decked out in the Steelers stuff.
Yeah.
Big win on Monday Night Football
and I'm still living it.
It was a good game, but it was an ugly football game. I mean,
it was so ugly, Alex.
You got to be thankful for that defense, though, because Kenny Pickett, Matt Canada combo, man, it's rough to watch.
First of all,
I was watching 2 games at one time, so it was like I was watching tennis.
I'm not blaming Kenny Pickett just yet. Because it's not Kenny Pickett that's having him, do a zone read on 3rd and 1 when you got a chance to, be a key first down, and you're doing a zone read with people running all over the place, and it's like, just hand the ball to Najee Harris on 3rd and 1 and let that guy go get you a first down. It's just
Najee Harris is he didn't look too great the other night either. I mean, he's not having a great start of the season.
Alex, it's hard to look great when your offensive line is allowing the guys to get 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
You were playing a really good defensive front in that game as well.
That's no excuse. They're professionals.
Has a lot to do with it.
You don't need to look like, disrespect, you don't need to look like West Oak High School. I mean, it was bad. Their offensive line is horrible.
The Warriors catching strays from
I'm sorry
today.
Like I said, but they look like a high school team. They're supposed to be professionals. They look like a high school offense. If it wasn't for George Pickens making a catch and run and going 72 yards, we lose the game. Or if it wasn't for T.J. Watt picking up a scoop fumble and Alex Highsmith intercepting and causing the fumble, they lose the game. And so, Matt Canada, I'm not one. You know me. I'm not one to say just need to be fired, but he needs to be fired.
I mean, everybody's been saying that Matt Canada needs to be fired for like 3 years now, and he's still holding on to his job.
Look at this stat, okay, Alex? Look at this stat. In 37 games as Pittsburgh's offensive coordinator now, 37, right?
Right.
Guess how many times the Steelers have gone over 400 yards?
Like one?
No, you had it right the first time.
Yeah. They're the only team in the NFL to not go over 400 yards in that time period, too.
Big fat zero.
The only team in the NFL. My Panthers, who are probably going to get the number one pick again, have gone over 400 yards in that time frame.
And think about this also. Guess how many times they've scored more than 20 points during that same time frame?
Couldn't tell you. 5.
28. Excuse me. More than 20 points, so it'd be 10. Only 10 times. 27 times they failed to score 20 points. And by the way, they would have done that the other night if it wasn't for the defense scoring 2 touchdowns. I mean, that's how bad it is. Matt Canada is not a very good NFL coach. He's not an NFL coordinator. I didn't think he was when he got hired. I knew this is what's going to happen. And now he's up there. He said today with the reporters, he said like he got what did he say exactly? I have to hold on. Let me look at this up real fast because I think I sent it to somebody.
Well, at least your team didn't have the quarterback lining up behind the right guard during a primetime game.
Yeah.
I mean, no knock on Bryce Young. He is a rookie quarterback, and he's figuring stuff out. It's really hard to go in and have success in your first year in the
Here's
league.
what he said. Matt Canada, when asked had this response when asked about his offense. He said, our offense was good enough to win the other night.
Yeah, if your defense scores 2 touchdowns.
You were not good enough to win the other night, Matt Canada. You were not. I mean, it's just an embarrassment. You know how many first downs, Alex, they have? And then we'll start talking other teams in college football and stuff. You know how many first downs they had the other night through 2 games in the first quarter? How many first downs the Steelers have?
Couldn't tell you.
That'd be 0. 2 games and not one single first down in the first quarter. That's embarrassing.
That's hard to do.
Yeah, and so in 4 quarters, first half, guess how many first downs they have? Like 3.
5.
3.
Ooh.
I mean, that's how bad it is. It is bad. It's embarrassing bad. And I don't understand why Mike Tomlin won't just get rid of them. Just cut it loose. Steelers need to cut them loose. Kenny Pickett, I think, is digressing, not progressing. He's looked bad the first 2 games. I don't blame it on Kenny. I blame it on his coordinator because he's not putting Kenny in positions to be successful. You can't ask your second-year quarterback to be 3rd and 13 every time he has. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, that's how the other night they were 3rd and 8 as their average yard to distance on 3rd down, 3rd and 8. You can't ask your second-year quarterback to constantly have to pick up first downs on 3rd and 8. You can't do it. That's just wrong. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. Here we go.
Yeah, I'm wearing the Greenville Drive hat today for 2 reasons. One, the Drive won the South Atlantic League for the second time ever.
Yeah,
this year won it in 4 games too. So swept 2 series to take the pennant.
Yep.
And then my good friend Kier Meredith announced his retirement today from baseball. He played for the Drive, and wish Kier the best. I know he's going to do some great things.
Championship in his last year. That's awesome.
Won a championship. So he won a championship at Clemson, and he won a championship with the Greenville Drive. So
not many guys can say that.
A heck of a career, and I know he's going to do some great things. He'll probably have more to say about that.
Do they get a bonus with that? Does he get a bonus
Well, I know they got free drinks in the Champions Club after the game, so
that's one plus. So you're all about that. I was like, heck with the bonus. I'm getting free drinks.
Yeah, I sent him money to buy a beverage, and he's like, "You didn't need to send me this. I've got plenty in the Champions Club for free right now." So, congrats to Kier, congrats to Eric Jarinko, the GM over there.
Yep.
Will owes a great deal to Eric Jarinko for all that he's done for him over the years.
There's no doubt I do, and congratulations to those guys. And I know Eric's loving my outfit right now, being that he's a fan of that other team in the Keystone State,
the one that's playing a little better right now.
By the way, there's some guy driving around my neighborhood with Florida State flags flying everywhere.
Do you think he's just making the rounds in the Seneca Clemson area? Maybe
no,
he lives to Anderson.
He lives over here in my neighborhood. I don't know which house he lives in, but he's driven by a couple times today. So, we're going to talk about that game here in just a little bit. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah. So six ranked matchups this weekend. Let's look back to last weekend for a second here. Ended up being crazy on the back end, despite a really kind of blah looking slate. Mm-hmm. What game for you was the most, head scratching, perplexing game? Because there were some weird ones.
It's easy. Which one was the most head scratching? It was Florida State, Boston College, and the reason why is because Boston College played like crap, and still almost won the game. I mean, they did. I mean, I've heard Florida State fans say Florida State was just overlooking Boston College and really just playing through the motions. Maybe that's the case. But who was Boston College overlooking? Because it was Boston College that had more turnovers. It was Boston College that had 18 penalties.
It was really hard. It was really hard for Boston College to bounce back from that big win over Holy Cross the week before.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to figure out. I mean, because Boston College played, 18 penalties. Boston College probably wins that game if it's not for the 18 penalties.
Yeah, and there were some drive-killing penalties in that too. Yeah. Especially, on their last drive.
On their the last drive of the game for them before Florida State was able to keep the ball and run out the clock because of why? A Boston College penalty on third down when they would have gotten the ball back and had a chance to win it. I'm not saying they would have won the game, but they would have had an opportunity to win the game again. And I'm like, now part of Florida State's struggles was because Jaheim Bell was hurt.
And they were missing two starters on the offensive line.
They're missing two starters on the offensive line, and their quarterback got hurt in the second quarter. And, he played, but they stopped running him for obvious reasons. They wanted him to be as healthy as he could be for Clemson. And they were just trying to get out of there with the win. I get it. But that surprised me because Florida State went up 31-10, and I thought, okay, well, they're up 31-10. They're going to blow them away now. Game's over. Next thing we know, it's 31-22, and I'm like, what in the crap just happened? And then Boston College had two chances in that fourth quarter to go win the game and couldn't get it done. Give Florida State's defense credit, but at the same time, Florida State, they showed some issues again, and they showed it to me in the LSU game. I know there's some Florida State fans that said to me when I've said this that, why do Clemson people keep mentioning, how Florida State struggled against LSU and when we won by 28 points? I'm like, well, you did, but the only reason you won by 28 points is because LSU 3 times in the first half failed to score, and they also failed to convert on what should have been 3 interceptions against your quarterback. So, that's why you won by 28 points. Florida State is not 28 points better than LSU. It's just LSU had one of those weird games like Clemson did against Duke, and Florida State ends up winning by 28. Give Florida State credit for taking advantage of their opportunities when LSU gave it to them. But to say Florida State is like, oh my gosh, you guys aren't giving them credit. No, everybody gives them credit. We're just also, if you watch the game through non-Florida State color eyes, you saw LSU had plenty of opportunities. LSU had 288 yards in the first half. They were on their way to a 600-yard game.
This is a Florida State defense that was exposed again by a bad Boston College team this past week. Yeah. Florida State, they rank 101st in total defense in the country coming into this matchup. This isn't this is a unit that has some talent. They've got some guys with speed on the back end.
And they gave up yards against Southern Miss too.
But they're giving up a lot of yards. And I know a lot of people like what you're saying are saying, well, they played LSU in the first game, and who have some of these other teams played, so far in the year? And yeah, that's all, well and good, but they've shown some real vulnerabilities on that end.
Mm-hmm.
And last week, like you're saying, they showed some more vulnerabilities on the offensive end too, dropping passes. Jordan Travis.
Wouldn't you say Florida Atlantic and Boston College? Wouldn't you say Florida Atlantic and Boston College are the same kind of teams?
I would say so.
Yeah. And what did how many yards did Florida Atlantic have on Clemson? Under 300, and that most of that came off the scrubs.
Yep.
Right. So Clemson's first team pitched a shutout and held them under 150 yards, or actually probably held them under 100, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And then the week before they did what you're supposed to against a weaker team. And so I think Florida State, yes, we mentioned all the reasons why they struggled at Boston College. They did have injuries. They did have guys they weren't playing with. But at the same time, their defense, at the time when they came into the game, had their players. But Florida State's lack of depth, which is something we've talked about. Yes, they've got all these transfer portal players that have helped them, and they're good. But the problem is they don't have any depth behind them. It showed in that Boston College game, especially on the defensive side of the ball, when they had a couple guys go out, and then they struggled defensively when those guys went out of the game. And so I don't know what the situation is for those guys this week, but you're playing Clemson, who's going to be physical with you. And if you get nicked up again and you lose a couple guys again, how are you going to handle that? As we said before, and we'll get more into the Clemson game here in just a minute. As we said before, Clemson is I think Florida State has the better starters on offense. I think Clemson has the better starters on defense overall.
Yep.
But I think Clemson has the better overall roster.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt on that. And you can see that from a depth standpoint, Clemson does. Now, yes, Clemson lost
we
to
talked
two.
about that in the preseason too, that Clemson's 44 are better than Florida State's 44, but the 22 at Florida State gets the nod.
Because of their offense.
Yep.
That's why. Let's be honest. That's why they get the nod, because they got the playmakers on offense. And that's going to be a challenge for Clemson this week, and we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, some other weird games this weekend. Alabama with 3 points through 3 quarters against USF. How bad is that offense? First of all, why is Alabama playing a road game in Tampa against South Florida to begin with? Who are these schedule makers? You're Alabama. You don't play a group of 5 team on the road.
Yeah, that surprised me. We always say something about Virginia Tech doing that. Alabama, that might be the first time I've seen an SEC team having to do that, right?
Alabama
and it's
doesn't
not just
play Power 5 teams
SEC,
on the road.
It's not just any SEC team. It's Alabama.
They don't play Power 5 teams on the road, and they're playing a group of 5 team on the road, out of conference. They don't play out of conference Power 5s on the road. Well, they played USF on the road.
They have now, right? They played USF on those. They've stunned me. I'm sure it's a 2-for-1 deal. So I'm sure UCF's going to probably have to go down to Tuscaloosa twice. That's how some of these things work on the schedules with the group of 5, because the group of 5 wants to have that one ticket, because imagine that ticket for them. That was probably
it's ticket. Like App State hosted North Carolina, and App State's hosted Miami. Mm-hmm. It's big for those athletic departments to get a marquee matchup. It fills up their stadium, which a lot of the group of 5 programs have issues with.
I think eventually Clemson's going to probably end up, because it's getting harder and harder to schedule group of 5s. Now, what Clemson is probably doing, Alex, now that what we'll see less of these matchups, because now with the 12-team college football playoff, you're going to start seeing more non-conference games like Clemson, Georgia, and Clemson, LSU with some of these teams, because they need to get that marquee non-conference win, or at least have that marquee non-conference game on their schedule. So you're going to see less and less with now the college football playoff expansion happening. You're going to see less and less matchups with group of 5s and FCS teams happening as they run the course of their, run through the course of their schedules here over the next few years. You're going to see more and more big-time matchups happening, like Ohio State, Notre Dame this week, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and then another one that we'd be remiss to talk about is, Georgia down 14-3 to South Carolina early in the game. They buckled down, particularly on defense in the second half, and they did what a team with a better line of scrimmage should do, and they just ran the ball for the entire second half instead of messing around. But Shane Beamer, has to get credit for being one of the best coaches in the country when it comes to getting his team ready for a marquee game. The way he's done it consistently in his tenure has been kind of remarkable to watch.
Yeah, he is. He's really, really good. I have all the respect of the world for Shane Beamer as a head coach. I really do. I don't know him as a person, so I can't say what he's like as a person. But I respect him as a head coach because, he gets the best out of his players, man. What he did against Georgia was impressive to me, to go in there and build a 14-3 lead. I like the game plan. I like how they were aggressive in the first half. They got they got sidetracked in the second half. I don't know if it was the weather that caused it or what.
Well, that
I was
certainly
really surprised.
played a factor when you're a team that has to sling the ball around the field to be successful on offense. When it gets a little dreary, things can go sideways pretty fast. And I think that was a big part of it because they just don't have weapons in the run game. And that offensive line can't protect enough for Rattler to scramble around. So when you're having to make these quick passes and throw frozen ropes to be successful, if it starts raining, that makes it a little difficult.
Yeah, it does. And Georgia did some things, and give Kirby Smart credit for adjusting. But, South Carolina was prepared. They were in position. There's a key play in the third quarter, midway through the third quarter. They have 3rd and 12 or something, and Rattler throws the pass over the middle for about 16, 17 yards right in his receiver's breadbasket, and he drops it. That was probably the play of the game. Because if they pick up the first down there's no telling. That momentum kind of shifts back over onto the South Carolina sideline, and maybe they go down and score, tie the game up, and then we're talking a totally different game from that point. Instead, They end up punting. Georgia gets the ball, goes downfield, and scores a touchdown, and puts a little separation between the two at that point. So, those are plays you got to make, and that's where South Carolina's kind of missing right now. But I just give all the credit to Shane Beamer. He's good, man. And tell you, you talked about this. I think by the time they play Clemson at the end of the year, they'll be every bit as good as they were last year by the end of the season. I really believe that. He'll figure things out because that offensive line held their own for the most part against Georgia, and I was really surprised about that.
Yeah, he has shown over his tenure there that, like you said, he gets the best out of his players, and they are a better team, a completely different team at the end of the year than they are at the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. Another game that kind of ruined mine and your work night on Saturday. Colorado and Colorado State
kept me up late.
Going into double overtime. I didn't end up leaving Spearfish. I was at a Division II football game, Black Hill State game. And there's one spot that's open with Wi-Fi for me to work late up there. So I was working and the game was on, and the lady at the restaurant let us stay and watch the end of it. So I didn't get home until almost 2 a.m. And then I was working until 5. And you had a similar situation there. You got a lot more to do after games than I do. But a great game, man. I saw a post from a college football account I follow on Instagram that said that the Colorado Deion Sanders hype has reached the level of the Tebow hype at Florida. Mm-hmm. And I think that's every bit of truth in that. But it's hard to take your eyes off of this team, even when they're playing a team that they should dominate. Just the fireworks that you see every time they step on the field are kind of amazing to watch.
Yeah, I mean they're fun to watch. The games are exciting for the most part. They're not the best team in the world, but they play hard. And that's the thing. That I think is going to catch up with them here pretty soon. But they're entertaining to watch, so everybody's watching them. And then you got Deion, and I think that's part of the reason why. But you can't. I mean, he's one of only 4 coaches in the first year to take a team that lost 11 games the year before and start a season 3-0 the next year. I mean, that's pretty impressive, and give him credit for that because I don't think anybody had them 3-0 at this point in the season, and including me. So, I give them credit, and they're fun to watch. I think some of the hype is a little overblown, but I think we're so hungry for something different in college football.
Something new.
I think something new, and I think that's why it's happening. Everybody's tired of Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan. Everybody's tired of that. They've seen that song and dance so many times. They want something new. But I think when it's all said and done, the cream rises to the top, and it's going to be most of those teams that I just mentioned that are going to be up there. Maybe not Alabama, maybe not Clemson, but I think Georgia and Ohio State are going to be right there in the mix, and maybe Notre Dame. We'll see with that game this weekend.
Yeah, those brands have staying power, and it's been proven time and time again. And I think it's going to be proven again this year.
I agree.
And we didn't even mention Missouri kicking a 61-yard field goal.
Oh my
longest
gosh.
in SEC history to beat Kansas State on Saturday to start the day.
How about that, man? That was unbelievable. And here's the thing. They had a clock management issue just before that caused them to back it up 5 yards.
Yeah.
So he was going to kick a 56-yarder and had to back it up 5. I'd be like, thanks, coach. Way to make it harder for me. But, he ended up making it. They said he could have made it from 70. I mean, it was unbelievable. I remember watching it because, like you, I got my YouTube TV up and I got 4 different games on, and that's one of the ones. I'm like, what just happened there? And you're like, what just happened? And we're both kind of wondering at the same time, trying to figure out, because we're watching the BC game. We happened to be on the phone at that time, and so it was pretty cool moment and good for Missouri.
Yeah, shout out to David Blackwell, who's on that Missouri staff, was on the Clemson staff for a long time. He's from Greenville. Played high school football with my dad at Berea. We won't talk about the Bulldogs because I obviously am a Devil Dog. But, shout out to him and that team for finding some success against a good Kansas State team. And then on Saturday, obviously, Clemson just took care of business. The defense set the tone from the opening kickoff. They get a pick 6. They're forcing turnovers all over the place. The offense was moving, except for maybe a little bit of that third quarter. But I think Clemson fans feel a lot better going into this Florida State game after what transpired for Clemson and Florida State last weekend.
Oh, absolutely, they did. I think, when I look at that game last week, and Clemson's going to have to do the same this week. I think the defense got to set the tone. It's going to be a little bit of a stiffer challenge this week, obviously, with Florida State. But when you saw the defense make that play right off the bat, and by the way, nobody's giving Xavier Thomas enough credit for that play, but his pressure on the quarterback is what set up Wiggins' interception. He got the quarterback on the run off his spot, had the pressure going. They were giving chase to him, and he makes a horrible throw. That's what pressuring the quarterback does. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later, but the defense just setting the tone right off the bat in that game. And you knew it was over at that point. You really did. And it was first of all, kudos to the Clemson crowd. You're playing Florida.
Showed up.
Playing Florida Atlantic. We wondered what they were going to be like after just being 1-1 and not really playing their best against Charleston Southern the week before. Man, they came out and they were loud and they were obnoxious and they were on top of it from the very beginning like you're supposed to be. I was like, man, they're in an empty seat in this house, and it was just great. And by the way, the Brian Dawkins video, if you guys haven't seen it, go to the ClemsonInsider.com Facebook page. Look at the Brian Dawkins video. And when he does the heel, Alex, it's like unbelievable. He does the heel first, and it's awesome. And then he does the fourth quarter. He starts off the fourth quarter video. And it's just, dude, I watched the players when he starts it off, the players for over Florida Atlantic were all just like, they were it was awesome, man. I got chills watching it because it was just awesome. B-Dog does a great job getting the crowd fired up in the Valley. Their videos are really pretty darn intense this year, I have to admit. So if you haven't seen them yet, you need to check them out.
Yeah, I need to go check that out. But, I'm a little disappointed from last Saturday because my entire family was at the game. My mom was at the game. My dad was at the game. Both my brothers and my sister were at the game. And I'm way up here. I didn't get to be there. So I was a little frustrated by that.
And when you say way up here, you are way up there.
I am way up here, man. But it's already fall up here. It feels great up here. We got weather in the 70s. It's sunny. The leaves are changing.
Hey, it's been
perfect,
in the 70s and
football weather here.
It's been in the 70s and 80s here. It's been in the high 70s, low 80s here. It's been in the 50s at night. It's been great weather. I've enjoyed it. It's going to be 56 degrees Saturday night. It's going to be like 80 to 79 degrees around kickoff tomorrow morning, or actually it'll be set in the 70s at kickoff, probably about 80 degrees by the time the game's over. But still, you're talking about a great day in the Valley on Saturday. That's going to be a great day in the Valley. So there's no reason for fans not to come. I know it's not a night game and all that, but it don't matter at Clemson if it's a night game or day game. The crowd's going to be there. They'll be loud. They'll be boisterous, and it'll be a great atmosphere. There's no doubt in my mind.
Let's talk a little bit more about what we saw from Clemson last weekend. One thing that stood out to me, Cade Klubnik looked comfortable and in control of the offense in the game against Florida Atlantic. Yeah, it's Florida Atlantic, but it's good to see him for 6 quarters really take ownership of that offense. And it also helps when you have a wide receiver step up and make plays like he did on Saturday as well.
Yeah, the thing I take away from it, I thought it was his best game, even better than the ACC championship game, because he stood in the pocket and he went through his progressions. He looked confident. He looked comfortable. It looked like the game is slowing down for him. That's what Dabo said too, that's what they needed to have with him, is the game just slow down. And when it does, he's going to be as good as anybody they've had. And, I said this from the beginning. He reminds me a lot of Taj Boyd, because he's got that same energy about him. He's got that same want to, and he's so like, where Deshaun and Trevor were right here all the time. They never got high and they never got low, but Taj did. And so he had that same kind of, and Klubnik is just like Taj. He gets really high and he gets really low, but they need to get him somewhere in here. And I think the other day we saw him kind of get right there. And when Taj was in this zone, Taj was as good as anybody Clemson ever had. And I think Klubnik has an opportunity to do that when he plays as poised as he did the other night. Granted, like you said, that was against Florida Atlantic. He's going to see some pretty doggone good defensive ends at Florida State this week, and they're going to have to roll him out of the pocket. He's going to have to do some different things. But I like what we saw from him. 16 of 25, right? I think 169 yards, 3 touchdowns. Also ran for a touchdown. Not a bad night for Mr. Klubnik in the Clemson offense. And Tyler Brown, as you mentioned, he really kind of showed out, and
he looked like what you expect to see from Clemson wide receivers.
Yeah,
Clemson hasn't had a guy play like that. I know. I mean, 3 catches for 49 yards, but 2 touchdowns, and he's going up over guys to grab the ball and creating separation. He's dynamic. It's what you expect to see from a Clemson wide receiver.
Well, you know what I like about him, right? I like the fact that he's confident. And what I mean by that is when we talk to the media, like some guys they're not very good talkers. They don't talk as well with the media. And it is what it is, right? I mean, but he's so confident in himself. Like you just see he carries himself confidently in everything he does. Because he just get in there with the media. He's just joking around with us. He's making jokes. First time he's ever talked to us. And he's like, making jokes, talking about this or that. And I was just like, okay, this kid, yeah, he's different. He's different, when his personality reflects the way he plays, which isn't always the case, So like, some guys, like Deshaun Watson's personality does not reflect the way he plays, not at all. And
right.
So like, what it does usually, that means to me, it always shows a sign of greatness or greatness to come. And he reminds me a lot of Artavis Scott, to be honest with you. And that's what I see in him when I see him play. So let's hope he can keep it going. I'm interested to see how Clemson's going to use those wide receivers this week, because I think Bo Collins, he's the alpha, obviously. I think Adam Randall now knows he's the guy on the field side, so he's got to be ready, right? And I think he got some confidence back last week. I think he's still doubting himself a little bit, but maybe with those 2 plays he made last week, maybe he's starting to feel a little good about himself, and maybe you start seeing him start coming out and making some plays. But then when you got 3 guys that are burners that can get open and create separation in an Antonio Williams, and a Tyler Brown, and a Troy Stellato, those 3 guys are burners. They can get open, and they can create separation on their own. That now you can't double team Antonio Williams like we saw at the beginning of the year, with Duke. Duke was double teaming him and saying, okay, somebody else make a play while nobody else could. Now you got Tyler Brown 3 games under his belt. You're starting to see him start to come along. Troy Stellato is healthy. He couldn't play against Duke because he just wasn't ready yet. You're starting to see him come along. And now defenses are recognizing, well, we can't, Bo Collins had that big game. Defenses are recognizing we can't double team Antonio Williams. Yeah. These other guys are making plays. That's going to help. And listen, we're going to talk about this in a minute. That's going to help Clemson this week against Florida State. I really believe that.
Let's just go ahead and talk about Clemson, Florida State.
Okay,
I feel like
do
we're
it.
just teasing it. We'll talk about other games that excite us about the weekend at the end before we do the pick six.
Yeah.
But Clemson, Florida State should be a ranked matchup. It's already sold out. Anybody who's thinking that Clemson fans aren't going to show up for a noon kick or they're going to be a late arriving crowd hasn't been to a noon game in Death Valley before.
Yeah.
How excited are you just to be in the building on Saturday when these two teams take the field.
Well, first of all, I'm thrilled it's a noon game personally, as you know.
Noon games are the best.
Yes, when you're in the
when
business, when you're working, it's the best because now I actually will get to see Ohio State, Notre Dame.
Yep.
I'll actually get to see the whole game. So I'm like excited about it, So yeah, there's that's one benefit, but I'm excited, yes, because I think it's going to be a great atmosphere. I remember a few years ago, I think Clemson played Wake Forest, and it was a noon game. And everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, it's going to noon game!" And here comes Wake Forest coming in with the 10th ranked team in the country. We need to win this game to stay in the ACC race, and oh, this is horrible. And yet the crowd was like electric. They got there like at 10 o'clock in the morning. They were filed in.
That was the one game I took off. I think I took 2 games off of work when I was in college. One my freshman year, and that one my senior year. And it was a heck of an environment. It was for a noon game against a really good Wake Forest team. But it's going to be even more that and more on
in
Saturday.
This game. That's kind of the point I'm making, right? Yeah. I think it's going to be that kind of environment or better. And it's going to be lit. And listen, Clemson is 42-2 in day games since 2014. Okay, so for this, people say Clemson doesn't play in day games, play well in day games. I'm like, they're 42-2. Looks like they played pretty well to me. They won 29 straight before South Carolina beat them the other day. By the way, Tim Beret, 29. What in the heck is it with that number in Clemson? I mean, it's unbelievable with no matter what sport, that 29 comes up somewhere and ends a streak. But they won 29 straight day games at Memorial Stadium during that 40-game streak. So, yeah, you do the math, Alex. During that 40-game win streak, only 11 were played at night.
Yep.
Do the math on that. Only 11 were played at night during that 40-game win streak. So, give Clemson Clemson does a great job no matter what time of night it is, getting the game day atmosphere where it needs to be, right? And I think that's going to be the case on Saturday. It is going to be a great atmosphere. Yeah, would it be better at night? Of course it would. But it's going to be really good in the daytime, too. It's not going to be a shabby atmosphere. And for those that think that are just ridiculous, in my opinion, that you think that.
Yeah, it's going to be everything that it's been cracked up to be and more when the ball kicks off. But in terms of what happens once that ball's kicked off, I think a lot of people going into this game don't really know what to expect. I think if you would have asked people 2 weeks ago, it would have been a really easy opinion to say that Florida State was going to just come in and walk all over Clemson. But I think after the way Clemson's played the last 6 quarters and what we saw from Florida State last week, I think that there's a lot more up in the air about what's going to happen once the ball does get kicked off on Saturday.
Well, it doesn't help either that Jaheim Bell's running his mouth, right?
Yeah.
And says, well, all you got to do is just punch Clemson in the face and they'll wilt or whatever, or something to that effect. I'm like, wow, I can't believe he actually said that.
Yep.
And I know I was talking to somebody else today, and they're like, well, but that stuff doesn't matter when they kick off the game. I'm like, yeah, it does matter.
100% matters.
Yeah, when Bell comes across the middle, if he's playing and he comes across the middle, now there's a chance he might not play. He's questionable, so he can run his mouth when he ain't playing, right? But if he plays and he comes across the middle, you don't think Jeremiah Trotter's going to show him how to get punched in the mouth? Yeah, he is. I mean, so I don't know why he wants to wake up Clemson that way, but that's pretty stupid.
As if Clemson didn't have enough to play for in this game.
Right. And
now you're running your mouth.
We've seen teams that have run their mouth on Clemson in the past. It's not worked out well for them, Yep. And so I'm surprised he did that. And I'm not saying Clemson's going to blow them out or anything, but I'm like, why did you feed them? You didn't need to feed them.
The bear?
Right, exactly. The bear? Poking the bear. That's a good one. So, but yeah, this game is, we'll start kind of breaking it down real fast here. I heard somebody say, I think it was Trevor Maddox on College Football Live said the other day, he's like, Clemson's offense doesn't compare to Florida State's offense. It's not even close. I'm thinking, okay, yeah, he's right. He's correct. It doesn't. But last time I checked, Cabe Klubnik's not playing, Jordan Travis.
Yep.
Cabe Klubnik's not having to go up against those wide receivers.
Yep. Clemson's offense is not playing Florida State's offense.
Exactly. But you know who is playing Florida State's offense? Clemson's elite defense.
Yep.
And that's an elite defense over there that has a ton of NFL talent on it, probably more NFL talent than Florida State has on offense. And they're going to be up for the challenge. And so that's going to be a good matchup. I think it cancels each other's out because I think Florida State's going to get their own. I do believe that. I think Clemson defense is going to get their own. I do believe that. So now it comes down to one matchup, and it's Clemson's offense, Florida State's defense. And you just mentioned Florida State's defense hasn't been that really good to where you're like, okay, yeah, this is not
in total defense.
Right. They're 101st, right? 101st.
Yep.
They're giving up big plays in the passing game. They're missing tackles. As I just mentioned, they got a couple guys that are dinged up. So what's their health status? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when those two line up. And if I think Clemson can also run up the middle. I don't like Florida State's linebackers at all. I think that's a mismatch for Clemson. I think they can really exploit them as they have the last couple of years there with Will Shipley and stuff like that. So the only question for Clemson, Alex, is I almost said the wrong name. Is Walker Parks? Is he going to be playing? He's going to be a game time decision. Dabo said last night. That's a big deal to me.
Yes.
Especially with what Clemson wants to do in the running game. They need Walker Parks up there. They need his nastiness.
Yep. He needs to get himself a cortisone shot, get that thing wrapped up, and get out there. I think if Clemson wants to win this football game.
That's what Jordan Travis is going to do.
Yeah, I know. And that's the other thing, too. Florida State has injury question marks. Are those two starting offensive linemen going to be back? What's Jordan Travis's status? How's that shoulder feeling? Is he going to be able to run the ball like he wants to run the ball and move in the pocket the way he wants to move? Because that's what they're going to have to do to be successful against Clemson. Is Jaheim Bell even going to play? Is he going to be able to back up all that talk? Or is he going to be sitting on the sideline watching the game as well? Florida State has a lot of question marks in terms of injuries coming in this game. Clemson obviously has a big one too. And obviously Clemson's special teams, who knows what's going to happen with that? You got a guy who was sitting on the beach last week. It's going to be starting at kicker on Saturday. So
let's just hope it doesn't come down to kicking.
And Dabo said that too. I hope it doesn't come down to a field goal. And when you say things like that, usually it comes down to a field goal. So
it does.
The spread in this game is 2 points.
It does. But man, it's crazy when you look at all the differences right in this game and all the things that are so iffy. And we'll start it with Jordan Travis, and he took the shot. He really didn't take a shot. He just was doing too much, and he got tackled, and he fell down on his elbow, and it shoved back up into his shoulder, and it looked like it looked like he dislocated it. But it turns out they said it was a sprain, is what the official word is of Florida State.
Let's be honest, they're not going to give us the official word before a game like this.
No, they're not going to give it for any time, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So we're not going to know what the damage is to it. But he was in pain. He was in bad pain. You could tell when it happened, and then later in the second half when that cortisone shot started wearing off, you could tell it was starting to hurt him, and it was aggravating him. Maybe not hurting him in the sense of like, oh my goodness, I can't deal with this, but it was painful. You could tell it was painful, and it was aggravating him a little bit. He's just holding his shoulder down like this, high-fiving his teammates. And they weren't running the zone read, the RPOs at all. And it affected Florida State's run game.
That's what they do. That's why Jordan Travis has been so successful, is because of the way that he's able to execute the RPO. And if you take out the R in the RPO, and you take out the X factor for that offense, what's made that offense so dynamic,
right,
is Jordan Travis and what he's able to do with the football in space. If you take that out, I don't know what you get from Florida State on offense.
You don't get much. We saw it in Boston College in the second half. You don't get much, and the defense is not going to respect that RPO game at all. And they struggled to run the ball with the running backs in that game. They in the second half especially, they couldn't get anything going in the run game. Florida State has to have those two running backs running the football well for the offense to work. And it's really the key to their offense. Everybody thinks they see these wide receivers and all this stuff and Jordan Travis, and it's supposed to be throw it 50 yards down the field. But no. That's not how it works. It starts with the running game and those two running backs. And if they can't get those guys going with their misdirections and with their counters and running some zone plays inside, if they can't get that working, then they're in trouble. So the key for Clemson, and Wes Goodwin said it the other day, we have to stop the run. And I think Clemson feels, between you and me, I think they feel really good about being able to do that. I think they really, really feel good. I think Clemson, what they're going to do is they're going to really focus on stopping those two running backs, and you're going to put a spy on Jordan Travis. So when he pulls You got to make sure Jeremiah Trotter's right there with them, or Wade Woodaz is right there with them. I think that's how Clemson's going to try to counter it and make Florida State beat them throwing the football consistently, which the last 2 weeks, if you look at Jordan Travis's numbers, look, he balled against LSU, no doubt, but he ain't thrown the ball with tar in the last 2 games. Go look at the numbers. They don't lie. I think he was barely over 50% against Southern Miss. And then last week didn't do much at all against Boston College. So I like this. This is how I'm thinking how they're going to do it. Now, West may have something altogether what they're going to do, but I think if you're Clemson, you're going to really want to test that shoulder, and you're going to want to hit him as often as you can. And so that's why I think you're going to see a spy on Jordan Travis to start off this game.
No, I agree with you 100%. In terms of Clemson offensively going into this game, they didn't break out the playbook very much against Duke in that loss. And then the last 2 weeks, they haven't needed to go deep in the playbook against Charleston Southern and Florida Atlantic. Do you think that Clemson finally showcases what Garrett Riley brings to this offense against Florida State on Saturday?
I do, but look at the looks they gave last week. They had some where they had 2 bunches. They played 20 personnel, a bunch. And for people to understand what 20 personnel is, that means they're running two running backs, no tight ends. And, I
love the 20 personnel. I want to see 20 personnel. 15,
I have never seen Clemson run 20 personnel. I was like,
with these backs, you got to run 20 personnel. When you have 2 backs like this, I mean, even if you look at Clemson's 4 deep.
Well, it's not just the backs, but you've got both backs. Now, they ran out of these sets, but the looks they're showing in the formation, what are you doing with them receivers? You got 5 wide receivers in there. What are you doing with them? There's no tight end. They're literally 5 wide receivers and 2 running backs. And what are you doing with these guys? They have them in these bunches. They have a 3-bunch set over here and a 2 over here. And it's like, what are you doing with these guys? And so I'm interested to see. Then they came out one time where they had 6 people, and they had 2 bunches on the outside, and they had 6 playing, they're playing 11 personnel at that time. And so it's like, I love the formations. I love what Garrett Riley. Now, he ran out every single one of them. But because he showed that look, Florida State's got to prepare for it. They got to say, okay, what are they going to do? And they don't know what Clemson's going to do with those looks because all they saw were run zones.
And you've got to think that there's still some stuff in the playbook that Clemson has been saving for a moment like this that they're going to be able to break out in this game. And that's one thing that I'm excited to see on Saturday. I hope I see it.
And let's be honest.
I see the full brain trust of Garrett Riley on display in a game that Clemson needs to prove something on Saturday. They want to prove something, and I want to see Garrett Riley's creativity be a big part of that.
And let's be honest, Alex, Clemson's seen a lot of Florida State because Florida State had to pull out all its tricks against LSU. Remember, they were trailing at halftime against LSU, and that game was tight going into the fourth quarter until LSU sort of rolled over in the fourth quarter with the turnovers and stuff like that. But Clemson saw a good bit of what Florida State wants to do. So Clemson's got better film than what LSU has because even against Duke, Clemson wasn't ready to kind of be in that dogfight. And they didn't really show as much.
And they were moving the ball well enough and putting themselves in good enough positions to score where they didn't have to use it. That's Correct. The other thing about the Duke game. I understand the criticism of Clemson not being as creative on offense in the opener. But at the same time, when you have the ball in the red zone, as many times as Clemson did, without having to break out the creativity.
4 times and didn't score.
I don't want to bring it up again. I mean, it's hard not to talk about it in this conversation. But Clemson was moving the ball well enough to where it didn't have to dive deep in the playbook.
Exactly.
There's only so many plays that you can run in the red zone anyway. When you have a short field, the looks that you're able to give on offense, you're limited in a lot of ways. But I want to see Clemson break out that creativity Saturday. And you're right, they haven't really needed to date.
No, they really haven't. And I want to bring this up because I think it's obviously we joked about it a second ago with Jonathan White's, the kicker who was in the beach in Charleston. And when you look at Jonathan, and I was talking to BT Potter the other day and did a story about Jonathan, who they're best friends. And these 2 guys kicked together the last 4 years. And they've always been in competition with each other. And I asked him, I said, I want an honest answer, not Jonathan's friend, BT Potter. I want an answer from, BT Potter, the kicker, talking about Jonathan White's the kicker. what do you think? What is he? How good is he? He says, I'll tell you what, he's accurate. He's like, he's more accurate than I am. And he's like, he puts it down the middle. And he's like, so he said he can't kick the 60 or 65 yarder. He said, but he can kick up to 52 yards. And he says he's down the middle almost every single kick he takes. He's like, so, he says he thinks they'll be fine with him doing it. He said they actually even joked, like, dude, after Lehman left and went to North Carolina, they even joked back in May, like, hey, what happens if Clemson actually calls you this year to come back? Would you do it? And it's like they never thought it would actually happen. Because they admitted, they think Robert Gunn's very talented, so they didn't think it would actually happen. But they're like, but what would you do? And they're like, it blew their mind when Dabo sent the text message saying, "Hey John, you interested in maybe coming and helping us kick? What are you doing next Saturday?
Could you even imagine what that would be like to be preparing to go move up the Eastern Seaboard for a job? You're in your career path. You're enjoying life. Could you even imagine what it would be like to be in this situation? You go from that to kicking in the biggest game of the year for Clemson and arguably the biggest game of the year for Florida State in a nationally televised game on Saturday in Death Valley.
Yeah, I can't imagine. What did Dabo say? I thought it was the quote. He says, "This is either going to be a great story or it's going to be terrible." So, I hope it's a great story because it seems like he's a good kid. And, if he would have been, BT said it, he says, listen, if it wasn't for me, he'd been starter the last 4 years. He's like, he's that good. He's good enough to be a starter on anybody's roster. He really is. And he says, so he's very accurate kicker. He says, that's why Coach Swinney called him up because they remember how accurate he is in practice and they've seen it. And he's kicked in games and he made all his tries in games he's played in. So the coaches kind of remembered this kid's actually pretty accurate. We need to call him up because Dabo's like, what did Dabo say today? He says he's sitting there. Somebody brought his name up. Dabo's like, wait a second. Are you telling me he's in school? Dabo didn't hesitate. He's like, you're telling me he's enrolled? He's like, we need to call him up. Dabo had no idea that he was enrolled in school, So
what a crazy story. We'll see how it comes into play on Saturday. There's going to be some opportunity. I mean, he's going to kick in the game. I mean, it's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
But what those kicks look like and what the situation is like, it's going to be interesting how that plays out.
Remember the last couple of years against Florida State, BT Potter last year in particular, he made 2 clutch field goals in that game that really changed the momentum of that game early. And especially there in the second quarter, I believe right before halftime, Potter made a long, like a 49-yard kick or something, kicking from the far right side. I mean, that was a tough kick to make. Yeah, in these kind of games, your kicker has to make some tough kicks. That's why Dabo went and got this kid because he needs somebody he can count on to make that tough kick. Because in this game, yeah, you need to have a kicker that can make kicks. You have to.
Yeah, so, let's get down to brass tacks here, Will. This is in our pick 6. We'll go ahead and give our pick on this. Okay. Florida State, a 2-point favorite at Clemson this weekend. They opened at 1.5. It went up to 2.5. Now it's back to 2. Everybody's staying pretty close to the line on this.
Yeah.
Brass tacks, Will, what happens on Saturday in the Valley?
First of all, if you really are betting, you stay away from
Go over the over. Take the over on this game.
Maybe well, I'll probably say take the under because I'm going to tell you my score in a minute. But I think you definitely stay away from this game because there's too many what if factors that are in play. What do we know about Clemson really? I mean, yes, I've seen it, and I think their defense is ready to make some plays and do some things. But the last time the national audience saw Clemson play, they got rolled over by Duke in the fourth quarter, 28-7. Now, as we talked about earlier, those mistakes in the red zone is what comeback that really cost Clemson the game. The defense, I thought, played well overall. But you don't know what you're going to get. I think there's a lot of people that just they're uneasy. And then Florida State, okay, how healthy is Jordan Travis? Do we really know? Is Bell going to play? Coleman didn't catch a single pass last week against Boston College. What's going on with Florida State's offense? Well, there's 2 offensive
linemen. What about the offensive line?
Yeah.
The thing that I feel like not enough people are talking about.
If this line is 3 points, then I'm like, take Clemson all day. but it's 2.5 to 2. I'm like, nah, I'm staying away from it. That 1 point is a big difference, especially with the kicker, Clemson's kicker situation. You just don't know. I'm just staying away from it if I'm betting. If I'm a betting guy, I'm staying away from it. Now, as far as what we're going to do.
As a talking head and a sports writer, though.
Yeah, but as a sports writer and a guy who's I've watched all Florida State's games, obviously watched Clemson's games. You know, the matchup I like Clemson's, as crazy as it sounds, I like Clemson's matchup in this game against Florida State's offense. Go back to last year. Clemson, when the game mattered the most, Clemson, for the most part, controlled the game. They sacked Jordan Travis 5 times. They really shut down the run in moments when they had to. I thought even the secondary early in that game played well. Now, Jordan Travis got them later when I think Clemson kind of, didn't play. They took their pressure off of them, right? They had their foot on their neck and they just took it off, allowed them to come back and make that score look better than it was. But, when I look at this, I like Clemson's secondary a lot. I think Clemson's secondary is better when you look at the size. I think you're going to have a Jaden Lucas at 6'2" start. I think you're going to have, obviously, Nate Wiggins, who's 6'2", is going to be starting on the other side. When you got, because I was looking at Nate Wiggins in the postgame last year. He might be 6'3" last week. I'm like, darn, he's tall.
It looks like
you don't see corners. You don't see corners that tall, but
and he's got that nastiness that you want to see from a corner, too.
Yes, both him and Lucas do.
You want to see corners talking smack. If your corners are not talking smack, the wide receivers, you're
probably
not a very good football team.
Exactly. And then you got Jalen Phillips on the back end, another 6'2" guy. You got R.J. Mickens, who's a 6 foot tall guy. So you got some size and athleticism at safety. And then, I know Andrew Makuba is questionable, but who cares? Because nothing against Andrew Makuba, who's a great player, but Khalil Barnes, that dude is a DeAndre McDaniel kind of guy. I mean, he brings the wood. He's
a guy who's getting inducted into the Clemson Hall of Fame on Saturday.
He is. So
rightfully so.
Exactly. So I like that matchup, as crazy as that sounds. And I think it comes down to Clemson's offense against Florida State's defense. And I think they can have success against Florida State's defense. I really do. Florida State's secondary is not that great. Go look at how many yards they're giving up through the air. It's like double what Clemson has given up so far. There's some breakdowns there. Their linebackers, I think the middle of the field, Clemson can really exploit those linebackers in the run game and in the passing game. So I'm interested to see how Clemson attacks the middle. That's where Clemson's going to start. They're going to start the game attacking the middle. So don't boo if you see Clemson handing off and running inside off through the A gap. There's a reason why they're doing that, people.
That's what you have to do to beat this Florida State team. You
can't start off wide
because
they got speed everywhere. So you're not going to go wide on them at first. You got to attack the middle of the field and start getting those safeties to come up inside to have to play the run. So that's going to be big. The key comes down to this, Alex. It's simple for Clemson in this game. It's really simple because Florida State's going to get their own with Jordan Travis and those guys. They're going to make some plays. They're going to get their own. They're too good not to. Clemson's got to score when they get their opportunities, and they cannot, and I say this with conviction, they cannot turn over the football. They can't. They got to help their defense out. They can't give Jordan Travis short fields. They can't do that. They got to help the defense out. They got to score when they get in the red zone. Whether it's a field goal or a touchdown, they got to get something out of those drives. So, that's what it comes down to. It comes down to Clemson's offense in this game. That's where it comes down to. If Clemson's offense can win that battle, Clemson's going to win this game. My score, and the Florida State fans think I'm crazy because they're like, there ain't no way that defense is holding them to that many points. Well, guys, if everything goes like I just said, and that's the key, Clemson wins this game 31-17 because I think Clemson's defense is ready to make a statement. Finally, they're tired of what people bring up that Duke game because they know they're better than that, and they know they played better than that at times against Duke, and they're ready to show the world that they're an elite defense every bit as much as Florida State's an elite offense. And they're going to – I think I'm going to go ahead and call this 3 turnovers. Clemson's going to force 3 turnovers in this game. So, and if they do that, Clemson's going to win 31-17 Tigers.
So Will just gave you a prop bet. He told you to stay away from the line and then said that Clemson's going to dominate. So make up your own decision.
I didn't say dominate because they could score late.
31-17. But if they
get a late score, make it 31-7, just to give you some breathing room. Excuse me. So I'm not saying dominate because I don't think they're going to dominate, but I think the defense can have success in stopping this Florida State offense.
Yeah,
and that's it. Don't take the over, because if you do the over's 55.5, right? So if you do the over, Clemson, I'm saying 48 points. So don't take the over. Take the under.
I'm going to tell you to take the over in the game. I do
that
think
means Florida State wins, Alex.
You think so?
I know so. If Florida State is scoring more than 30 points, Clemson ain't winning this game, my friend. I'm telling you.
Wait, I don't think that Florida
Clemson
State
ain't scoring more than 31. I've watched them enough. It ain't happening.
Yeah, I think maybe I do see Clemson's defense having a breakout game, but I could see a situation like what you saw last year where Florida State has some late scores, maybe to close the gap in the fourth quarter, make it feel tighter than it was. I could see something like that happening again. Maybe that's why I'm more prone to take the over. But I think that Clemson beats Florida State on Saturday too. It's kind of a good omen too. The last time a highly touted Florida State team came and played an unranked Clemson team in 2003, it went in Clemson's favor in a game that went a lot like what Will just described. So I think that Clemson's Will keeps kicking me out and put me back in. I don't know what's going on. But I've got Clemson winning straight up against Florida State on Saturday in the Valley. Hopefully it doesn't come down to a kicking situation. If you're a Clemson fan, that might make you nervous, but I got Clemson with a win too.
Well, that's yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I just don't see it. I hope it don't come down to that kind of thing. So, Alex, I got to do something. So, knock me out for a second. And I'll be right back.
All right, Will is gonna go take care of the dogs. This is what happens when you have a live show. When you have a live show, real things for real life come up and get you. But there's some other really exciting games in the top 25 this week. And they're all featured in our pick 6. So I'll kind of just run through those other ranked games. You got number 19 Colorado at number 10 Oregon. Are we going to see the Bo Nix of greatness, or are we going to see the Bo Nix that likes to turn the ball all over the field? We're going to find out in Eugene on Saturday. I think this Oregon team, this Dan Lanning Oregon team, wants to make a statement in this game because of all the hype that's been surrounding Colorado. I mean, last week you had 60 Minutes, Pat McAfee, College Game Day, Big Noon Kickoff. Everybody, every national media outlet's been out to Boulder. And I think Oregon's going to want to make a statement. And I think Colorado, without Travis Hunter, I think we're already going to see that depth issue that they're going to have come into play in that game. Another game in the Pac-12. Pac-12, by the way, has had a great season so far. You got number 22 UCLA going to number 11 Utah. And Cam Rising seems like he may be back because the game opened at a 4.5 line with Utah as the favorite. And now that line's grown to 6. So there are a lot of people, Brett McMurphy, who we mentioned earlier in the show, one of the people speculating that at least Vegas seems to think that maybe Cam Rising is back for this game. You got another one, Ole Miss and Alabama, 15 Ole Miss at number 13 Alabama. Alabama, man, if anybody needs a statement win at this point in the season, it's that team that just can't seem to figure it out at quarterback. You got Jalen Milroe, you got Tyler Buckner, and none of their quarterbacks have really impressed so far this season. They want to make a statement against Ole Miss at Bryant-Denny. They're 6.5-point favorites for a 3:30 kickoff in Tuscaloosa. And then the game that me and Will have already mentioned a couple times, you got number 6 Ohio State at number 9 Notre Dame, a 7:30 kick. And that one, Will's going to get to watch the whole game. He's going to get to see what Notre Dame really brings to the table and what Ohio State really brings to the table in those two teams' first real tests. You talk about a game with a lot of ifs going into it. I mean, who knows what to expect from that game, but Ohio State a 3-point favorite on the road. And then the last game we're going to pick, Mississippi State at South Carolina. South Carolina 6-point favorite. A lot of connections between Shane Beamer and the Bulldogs in that one too. So let's go ahead and get into this thing, the pick 6. But first, what game other than Clemson, Florida State are you most excited to see this weekend, Will?
First of all, I want to apologize. I have a sick puppy, and I had to go. She was howling, so I had to go check on her. I'm sorry. So by myself, I got to go check on her, see how she's doing. So I apologize for that.
That's live show. Things happen in real life.
It does. It does. So what game was it again? I'm sorry.
What game are you most excited to see this weekend other than Clemson, Florida State?
Oh, it's without a doubt Notre Dame and Ohio State. I mean, I think that's the game of the weekend. Two undefeated teams. I think Ohio State's kind of been disrespected a little bit. I mean, they start off the year number 3, and they're number 6 now. I mean, I'm like, okay, why?
What have they done to move back? They kind of got the Clemson treatment a little bit.
They have a little bit, and not that I'm. Me and you are not Ohio State fans to be. I mean, we don't care for Ohio State much at all over here, but it's an interesting matchup, and I think there's a little disrespect going on with Ohio State. But their quarterback hasn't really played in this kind of environment, played this kind of team that he's going to play a very good Notre Dame defense. Notre Dame's offensive line is – say what?
It's a hard place to play.
It is a very hard place to play.
And weird things happen there.
It does. Ask Clemson. So this is a great game for Freeman to have an opportunity to again get another ranked win there in South Bend. The fans are going to be into it. We saw that firsthand with their last year. It's going to be interesting to see. This is going to be a game. I think it's going to be a tight game. I think it's going to be a very physical, old school kind of Big Ten style football, if you will.
It'll be an Alex and Will style football game.
It is. It's going to be fun. I'm going to enjoy this because I think it's going to be a defensive kind of game. I'm thinking 21-17 or something of that nature, and I'm thinking the Irish win it. I like this Notre Dame team. I think they got the quarterback they need. They got a great running game with a great offensive line. Their skill players aren't anything to write home about, but they're good enough because of their quarterback to make plays. And then their defense is just elite. Might be the best defense in the country when I watch them play. They fly to the football. They're everywhere. They're aggressive up front. Their defensive front is as good as anybody's. I like the matchup. I'm not a Notre Dame fan by no stretch of the imagination, but I like this football team when I watch them play. And, so Matt Freeman's Notre Dame Irish might be a legit team to deal with in the college football playoff finally.
Yeah, that's the game I'm most excited to see, too. I mean, these other games are exciting on the slate, too. I mean, just so many ranked games. And one of them that I didn't even include on the pick 6, you got DJ Uyunglele's ranked Beavers playing in a ranked matchup this weekend, too.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard not to get excited about that Ohio State-Notre Dame game. 2 marquee brands. And for Marcus Freeman, like you're saying, this is a big opportunity for him as a head coach to add another signature victory to his resume.
Yep.
It's a lot different situation than when he's playing him to open the year in his first game as a head coach. There's a much different scenario for him. And you got to remember that game last year, a better Ohio State team, and I think a lesser Notre Dame team. And they went up there and gave the Buckeyes everything they could handle in the horseshoe.
Yeah.
So I'm picking Notre Dame in that one too.
Yep.
I'm not confident enough to pick them straight up, but I am confident enough to pick them with a 3-point spread.
Well, I picked them straight up, so.
Yeah, I know. You don't get bonus points for that.
I picked Texas straight up, so this Cape Note.
Yes, that's true. Will has a better resume in these top 10 matchups than I do so far. Other games in our pick 6. Number 19, Colorado at 10th ranked Oregon. Oregon, a 3-touchdown favorite for a 3:30 kickoff in Eugene.
Mm-hmm. Take Oregon minus the 21. Yep. I think Hunter's not going to be in the game. I think that's going to be a big deal for them. I think Oregon can score whenever they want to score. Bo Nix and what they're doing. It's going to be hard for Colorado to stop them. Colorado's defense is not very good. I mean, let's just call it what it is. It's not. And you keep putting on the pressure for Sanders to have to make play after play, and you're just putting too much pressure on your quarterback to keep up. I think, at some point when you play a team that's as good or better than you are on offense, it's hard. Ask Trevor Lawrence. It's hard to keep up. And I refer back to that 2019 national championship game. When you got another offense on the other side of the ball that's just as good or better, you got to be perfect on your side. Because they're going to get theirs. And so I think this situation. Oregon's matches up well with that Colorado defense. Oregon's going to get enough stops on their side against Colorado. I think Oregon wins 42-21, something like that. So, I'm going to take Oregon plus the 21 there. Minus the 21 there. Sorry.
Yeah, I was kind of talking when you were out of the room too, that I feel like this is a real statement game for Dan Lanning at Oregon. You know, they kind of got disrespected a little bit last year. They've kind of got overlooked by a lot of people as well. So I think it's a big statement game for them. It's a big statement game for Bo Nix. And I think too, what you're saying, that what we talked about earlier in the year, that Colorado's depth is already starting to be tested with that limited number of scholarship players that they have. Oregon's a tough place to play. I think they cover in the game as well. Another one in the Pac-12, number 22 UCLA at number 11 Utah. The line is 6 in favor of the Utes, and it was 4.5 earlier in the week. So there's some speculation that the line is starting to move because maybe Cam Rising is back. So what do you see?
Of course, we're not going to know because Utah doesn't say anything about their injury. So we won't know.
Nobody says anything anymore. Let's be honest. But
well, as more as gambling, college football gets more and more into gambling, which it always has been. But the more and more that it gets to where like we got all these things going on, they're going to have to. They're going to have to. Yeah. Conferences are going to have to force coaches to have to say their line because that's becoming part of the money. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah, you start hurting people's money, you start causing some issues. But what do you have here? I'll go first on this. I always make you go first. It's not fair.
Go ahead.
Utah,
poor baby.
Yeah, it's not fair for you. It's fair for me. I get to hear what you say and then guess against you. It's like the Price is Right. I can go $1 under.
Well, you know, I don't care what you say. I'm going to tell you my opinion, but go ahead.
I think that UCLA's got some firepower. They've got a good football team this year. I think that they're improved from where they were last year. I thought they were pretty good last year until they ran into some brick walls. But Utah is a tough place to play. Those fans get fired up. It's a high elevation. You're going from sea level to the mountains if you're UCLA in that game too. But you know, I tend to go with Utah in this one, even with the 6 points. And if Cam Rising's back, I'd definitely go with that. But their backups played dang good to start the year too. So I'm going with Utah and the points.
Yeah, if Cam Rising's playing, I'm definitely going with Utah on this. Even though I like, the UCLA got a freshman quarterback. This is a big game for them because if they go and win this game, then all of a sudden UCLA becomes a team that you got to really think about in this Pac-12, right? So they would be a dangerous team if that freshman can go into that environment and get a win. Well, they've won 23 straight home games, something of that nature. Yep. They're tough to beat in that environment. It's a tough place to play. If Cam Rising's playing, it's going to be even harder. He's not like, the greatest quarterback in the world, but he's just good. He knows how to win.
He's just got that moxie to him.
Exactly.
He's a tough, hard-nosed football player. He's not sliding. He's not sliding if
he ain't sliding.
No, he's running over you.
And that's why he's on the bench the first couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, but he is who he is, right? So, but yeah, I'm with you. I like Utah in this if he's playing. Now, if he's not playing, then I would take UCLA. So, so the key thing here is he's playing. So right now you see the line 6. It moved from 4 to 6.
It moved from 4.5 to 6.
Yeah. So I would say if he's not playing, then you go back and you take that money right there, and take UCLA plus the 6. But if he's playing, then I'm gonna go with Utah.
What do you got with everything you know right now? Which one are you doing? You just gave us 2 ifs. You can't.
Well, I can't. I said if he's playing. I mean, I know it's an if, but. I don't know if he's playing, so I can't give you an answer. Like if I'm betting, I'm not laying a bet. I'm not laying a bet on this game right now. I'm staying away from it till I know what he's doing.
But what are you doing for the sake of our competition?
Well, I guess I'll play it safe and just go Utah.
Good to know.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and take the layup.
Another weird game. Talk about two ranked teams that have kind of underperformed. To this point in the season. 15 Ole Miss at 13 Alabama. Alabama a 6.5-point favorite for a 3:30 kickoff.
Yeah, give me Ole Miss plus the 6.5. I think they're going to win straight up. If Alabama doesn't show me they can score on offense and they can move the football with some consistency, I know Ole Miss can score and move the football, and I know Alabama's defense is good.
I mean, but let's also be honest. Dart hasn't overly impressed so far this year at Ole Miss either.
No, but everybody else on the offense has. I mean, my point being is they have more weapons, it seems like, than Alabama has. And I could be totally wrong, and they go in there and lay an egg and get beat by 20. But I just got this feeling like Alabama has serious issues at quarterback. And when you're playing the quarterback merry-go-round like they're doing right now, it messes up the continuity of this team. And so we're going to see if they fixed it, because they're going to start what's his name back again. If they can fix that, then okay, maybe they play better. But if they're not, and there's doubt and indecision with the quarterback position, Saban right now has got to be careful. He can lose this team, not to the sense where they're going to be like, 6-5 awful kind of thing. I'm talking, but they could lose 3 or 4 ball games, and they could lose their second one this week if he's not careful. Look, the SEC is not apologetic. If you don't get things right, the SEC will beat you up. And so this is a tough game for Alabama, knowing that they don't have any confidence in any quarterback they have on their roster right now.
Yeah, I'm going with Ole Miss and the points. I still tend to think that Alabama wins the football game, but I think, like what you're saying with Alabama and their offensive question marks, I'm going to take Ole Miss with the points.
My gut's telling me Ole Miss is going to win the game. I don't know. It's just telling me that, this just seems like that kind of crazy game that Ole Miss goes in and beats Alabama in, because Alabama's just not stable at quarterback. It's going to be a crazy game. It really is. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we already talked about Ohio State and Notre Dame, 7:30 kickoff in South Bend. Looking forward to that one. Man, I know it's going to be a great environment and everything that college football is about. So when you have matchups like that, Clemson, Florida State,
going to be a lot of drunk Catholics in the stand. Going to be a lot of drunk Catholics in the stand. I'm telling you right now.
There's going to be a lot of drunk Baptists in the stands at Death Valley on Saturday too.
Alex, the Baptists don't drink. What are you talking about?
Reformed Baptists do. And then the other one I got on here, Mississippi State at South Carolina. South Carolina, a 6-point favorite, 7:30 p.m. kickoff in Columbia. There was a really good story today by Emily Adams at the Greenville News about Shane Beamer's ties to Starkville. Woody McCorvey played a big role in that, in giving Shane Beamer an opportunity to be a coach. And man, how many guys has Woody McCorvey impacted in the coaching profession? It's just unreal the impact that guy's had. But a personal game for Shane Beamer, and a big game for South Carolina, because they played well last week, but they lost. You open the season with the loss. And, Mississippi State, they're not a slouch that you're playing at home. But South Carolina, 6-point favorite. What you got?
Yeah, first of all, you're right about Coach McCorvey. He's a great guy, and he's been in the business a long time. When you're in the business as long as Woody McCorvey's been in the business, you play a big role in a lot of coaches' lives. And so it's good to see Shane Beamer give him the credit and tell that story. I like the Gamecocks this matchup. Mississippi State's awful, dude. You watched the LSU game last week? I mean, LSU's a pretty good team, don't get me wrong, but man, Mississippi State's just awful. They're awful. Yeah. That's the only thing I can say. And I think South Carolina proved they can play big boy football last week against Georgia. I think they're trying to fix some things. They still got issues on the offensive line and defensive line they got to fix. But I don't know if Mississippi State's going to try to come in there and bully them. And I don't know if they're good enough to consistently do that through 60-minute game. So I like South Carolina in this game because South Carolina's got the weapons on offense. I think Spencer Rattler's without a doubt the better quarterback. They'll be able to make some plays. So go ahead and give me the Gamecocks. What is it, plus 6.5 there?
Yeah, 6.
6. So give me South Carolina minus 6 points there. I think South Carolina wins going away.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I think South Carolina just smacks them, to be honest. I think maybe this line should be a little bit higher.
I think so too.
I know South Carolina has issues, but it's just with Spencer Rattler and how efficient he's been this year. It's kind of amazing because the guy's getting just destroyed in the pocket every game by every team that they play. And I'm sure he'll take a few sacks against Mississippi State on Saturday, even though it's Mississippi State. It's just that's how bad their offensive line is. But the way that he's able to put the ball in the numbers and throw that deep ball, South Carolina is going to run away with this one.
That's a night game at Williams-Brice, right?
Yeah, it's a night game in Williams-Brice too. So the towels will be flying around and they'll be playing the techno music.
It's like the old days. All the media will be in the Valley for the noon kickoff, Florida State, and then they'll all travel south and go over and cover South Carolina in the night game. It's like the good old
but
days.
it looks like it seems like a good travel day for Gene Sapakoff. He's gonna hit up both, sure.
and Phil Kornblut.
Phil Kornblut, yeah, he'll be at both. So
yeah.
Going to be a good day in the Palmetto State if things go the way that Will and I think they will on Saturday.
I think so.
But we'll see. You never know what's going to happen in college football, but we are excited for the slate that we've got upcoming this weekend. We'll be back next week to break it all down and talk about another new week in college football. For Will Vandervort, I'm Alex Dodd. This is Off the Cuff, and we'll be back here next week.
See you guys.